Good evening and welcome to St. Paul Planning Meeting. I'll call the meeting to order, the time being 5:30. And I'll have the resolution to adopt the agenda as presented.
Be resolved that it is adopted as presented.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Duval, seconded by Councillor Horechko. All those in favor? Carried. Thought for a minute, Councillor Imhoff was going to oppose something.
I'm on slow response.
Okay, wait for you. Item number 4 is confirmation of the minutes from January 14th for resolution.
Be resolved that the council meeting minutes of the January 14th, 2025 regular meeting.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Imhoff, seconded by Councillor Duval. Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Oh, wow, you're up to that. We don't have any delegations this evening. We do have public hearings. Item 6.1. I had to step out during the last meeting during this public hearing. So because the public hearing was held, I will not partake in the public hearing process. I'm going to pass over the chair to Councillor Imhoff, which he chaired the public hearing at that time. So Councillor Imhoff, I'll allow you to come into my seat. And I'll come back to the chair once this variation order has been dealt with. Do you want my book or are you good?
Well, good.
Yeah, I'm gonna take my phone.
Any water?
Oh, yeah, I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
You guys are stuck with the new kid again? Madam CEO, are we, do we need any kind of resolution to get started again, or are we just back on?
The public hearing is still open.
Okay.
There's any further or the applicants.
Okay.
Council, so this is variance number 97 of 2024 for a property on Wenzel Street. I wasn't at the last hearing, but I understand that public hearing was open, it's not closed, just tabled and adjourned, so you could get some more information from the applicant. Just a refresher, the purpose of this variance is to increase the number of accessory structures from 2, which is the maximum permitted in the zone, which is a RR2 rural residential zone, to 7. Here's just a outline of the subject property. You can see rather large property there in rural residential. Just south of some newer lots that's popped up in the last few years. And this was a site plan that the applicant provided. And then what we have as well is building location certificate. You can see this. I believe this is what council was asking for in terms of where are all the accessory buildings on the property. So that's just a blown up image of what was provided. That's all I have at this point, Mr. Chairman. I understand. Do you know of public hearing and probably ask for?
Okay, yeah. Does anyone have any questions for the planner?
Just one quick one. You said 7?
7.
So,
The variance is for, yeah.
oh, so it doesn't matter the drawing has 10 on it? Or
So
I would like to mention, this hearing was adjourned from the December 17th meeting in order to obtain a building location certificate, which was obtained yesterday. And as you can see, I count 9 detached accessory structures. The one is the dwelling, so that doesn't count. So my question is, does the applicant want to proceed with just 7 of the 9, or do they plan to amend the application?
Mr. Toyne, you're representing the applicant today again?
Yes, I am. There we go.
Yeah, unfortunately, Ms. Morgan is traveling for work. She can't attend tonight, and her husband is on hockey dad duty, so you're stuck with me. I apologize. So as hopefully you saw in the documents that I had provided yesterday, the day before, I don't recall exactly what it was. There was reference after the pictures that we had provided, hopefully to be of some use to you. We indicated that the two smallest structures were not part of the initial application. And when I asked Ms. Morgan, well, why was that? She had said, well, because they're just so small, we thought that the idea was we needed the bigger ones. So the two that aren't included, at least in that original sketch, if you're taking a look at that location certificate, where it says paddock, there's a tiny little wooden structure in there called animal shelter. And then in the middle of the document, there's a very small structure as well. We don't have pictures of those, but we do have pictures of the others.
So are they to be included in this then? Is like Mr. Planner,
Well, the application was for 7 buildings, so everything here would qualify as an accessory structure into the total, so I guess there's a couple of options that I can think of just off my head. If the applicant wanted to continue on with this and council were to approve 7, then they'd have to selectively take 2 of them away. Or they could amend the application and we'd have to re-advertise public hearing and then come back to council with 9 instead of 7. If the applicant were going to do that, if they chose to amend the application, there is typically a charge for that, but I would waive the cost, just re-advertise, have a new number for them, so.
I still see 10. I know they have that small wood shelter and the small little one in the middle. But if you count the other ones, there's the 2 sheds and there's one by the pen, another one, the large stucco garage, that's 5. The 9 solid dwelling, 6, 7, 8, and then the other 2 make 9, 10. So there is 10.
There's
One's a house.
10, there's 10
For me?
buildings.
One's a
but-
house,
Yeah,
so that doesn't count.
the big one is the house, so we're talking about accessory structures.
Oh, okay. Oh, the house doesn't count in it.
Let have a house and you're like.
Oh, right. Okay, I thought there was a little bit behind the house. It's just the deck. Okay, it's just the deck. All right. Yes, you're right. 9-story. Okay, that clarified that for me.
so how do we want to proceed? Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Duval.
Yeah, it's a pity the owner isn't here, but when you look at the pictures, look at the drawing that we have on the screen now. And look at the types of many of these buildings are very small. It looks like they've been dropped haphazardly all over the yard. There's no rhyme or reason where they are. There's nothing neatly, arranged, which would make a big difference. If they were. Perhaps if they were arranged, you wouldn't need so many little ones. You could combine them into one and place them closer to some of the bigger buildings. So the place does not look like a shanty town. Pardon that expression, but when you see little buildings scattered all over, that's kind of the impression. So I don't know if your client would be willing to look into that and perhaps rearrange these buildings. And 7 is the number, not 9, of this application.
No, that's true. And on that point, I think, Mr. Chair, you were asking what would the applicant like to do? And it struck me, I'm going to make a suggestion, you may disagree with it, that frequently happens when I appear in front of municipal councils. More so the city of Winnipeg than here, but we'll see. So in the zoning bylaw, when it talks about RR2, it talks about accessory units. It doesn't talk about accessory structures. And I realize that this may sound like I'm attempting to split hairs, but just hear me out. So there is some ambiguity in the wording of the bylaw. And it struck me that the application captures the largest structures. The two quite small ones, in some respects, at least it strikes me, are not particularly material. It would be akin to someone having a garage, an air conditioner, and like a little swing set attached to the ground in their backyard. Is that 3 accessory units or structures? Perhaps, but I don't think council is focused so much on that, that tiny little structure. What you're really worried about are the bigger, the enclosed ones, things like the garage, the sheds, those types of things. So it struck me that in the circumstances, that the application is for those 7 larger structures, the garage and the other ones that are set out there. And given the ambiguity that is present in the language of the zoning bylaw and the other zoning, the other zones that track that language that was put in back in 2016, that you're still able, in my respectful submission, to deal with this, to correct the issue, which is too many accessory structures. Perhaps they need to get rearranged. I'll certainly convey that to the applicant. But when you're dealing with a 47 or so acre property with this many structures on it, those 2 little ones, is it an accessory structure? Is it an accessory unit? I think that the intent of the zoning bylaw has been satisfied by the application that's been made, and that those 2 smaller structures certainly shouldn't be seen as something that would fall outside of the variance, if you're inclined to grant it.
Just to clarify, those 2 smaller ones, which are the ones furthest to the right, I believe.
No, so hang on, so the 2 smaller ones, if you see in the upper left hand of the drawing, it says paddock. Yes, so that little animal shelter there, that's I saw it back in the summer. It's a small wooden structure. It's less than 10 by 10. And then in between, so yes, right there, there's another smaller structure again, less than a 10 by 10. So those are the 2 that were not present on that original hand sketch. And when I asked the applicant, well, why not? She said, well, they're just so small, it didn't strike us, like they're different from those bigger structures that we have those pictures.
Are there the pictures that are shown in your package of today? Are they illustrated in here? Do we have
those 2 smaller structures? They are not.
the ones you just described?
No. So if you've got that, whether you've managed to print it off or you've got it on your screen, there's a couple of pages with pictures.
Yep.
Those are the structures other than the garage. So the garage counts as one of them, and then you've got those other structures. But those 2, what I would call the 2 extras or the 2 tiny ones, those aren't reflected in those photos. So the photos were taken of the structures that fall within the cell. Minus the garage.
Personally, I structure size to me matters not. The fact that it is a structure and it is on the property, and our planner seems to support that as well. I would say that these need to count towards total. So if the application and the process was to advertise for 7 and have a hearing for 7, we're gonna have the hearing for 7 unless it's amended. My counselors or my fellow counselors can weigh in on this as well, but that's my.
Yeah, with any of the ones we did, it's your total square footage of all your buildings. That's what the bylaw is. And am I correct on R2? Is it? Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's always been the total. So some come with, we've seen large ones, 50 acres, 70 acres, and they can have, but a 1,200 or 2 1,200s, I believe, in R2. Is that correct? Yeah.
In R2, the bylaw says you can have up to 2.
Up to 2 buildings, up to 1,200 square feet. So 2,400 total.
R5, it goes up to 200 square feet.
And it's always the total, because we've had people take buildings down. When they wanted to put a big one up, they put 5 rooms down.
In the materials, you will have seen its reference to that case that was in the media, the giant red garage out in Charleswood. That's what took place there. My clients took a number of structures down before erecting that large red garage.
Well, we go by our bylaws, so. City.
Councillor Duval.
I'm just pondering a thought here, but again, just, carrying forward with my previous point, it looks like things were just dropped here and there as time went on. And not having, I've visited the property during campaign time, so I'm a little bit familiar with it, but not fully familiar. And just the arrangement of those sheds kind of tell me that probably don't need the last 2 of them that we're talking about here right now, if things were better organized.
You might be right, yes.
So with that, I'd be in favor of sticking to the 7 allowables as per the application is written and not consider an amendment to going any higher.
I guess it's in the applicant's hands here now. I mean, it's, we can move ahead with the 7, I guess, and then it's which 2 are out, or we can chat with the applicant directly and find out.
So perhaps what I'll suggest, because it sounds like I'm not going to persuade you on just don't worry about the 2 little ones. If we could stand it down for a couple of minutes, I can try to reach the applicant. And if the other 2 matters can go ahead, and then perhaps we can call this public hearing back on, once I have a sense of what. Although I realize that may be inconvenient for you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and the mayor, because she would be popping in and out.
We're here to serve. However, let's, I think I want to address a couple of other things, unless anyone's got any questions further on this one. So, in the last round of the supplementary brief that you provided, your summary, I want to make sure I get this right. That we did not dispute the contents of the brief, which isn't exactly accurate, because we asked, that was part of the ask to adjourn, was to review it. So just.
We had said staff, not members of council.
Okay.
The reason I'm here is because you specifically said to me, go get a building locations.
Yeah, and we needed more time to, yeah, okay. So having looked at that, I think we could need to address one other thing here too. And that would be according to your brief, approving this variance also approves having the animals. And I think those 2 things are.
That's separate.
So so the intent of the brief was to do 3 things. First, to explain why, at least in the applicant's position, she should get a variance. Second, in the event that there's issues raised with respect to the purpose of some of those structures or the presence of the animals, to provide some information to you in that regard. And third, to the extent that you thought that those 2 issues were linked, to suggest that they aren't and they need not be. If you approve the variance, there may still be further issues with respect to the purpose of those buildings, the presence of animals. The applicant understands, as do I. So if you approve a variance, 7, 9, some other number that we ultimately get to, that doesn't, at least in my view, reflect a decision by council with respect to the presence or absence of animals. You know what our view on that is now, staff know what our view is on that now, so if there's going to be discussions going forward, we've said, here's our position. But if you grant a stamp of approval later this evening on this variance, I don't think it directly addresses that issue. Although you may have a different view, I'm not sure.
It's not how I read it. It came off entirely different to me. It's basically that the approval of this variance approves the animals, and we wanted to make sure that that was clearly not what our expectations would be. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, I believe you're absolutely right, Mr. Twain. This application is for 7 buildings, period. Their use is not in question. They're not subject to this application. If that should come, now we're made aware of that with the intended use, and that's all well and good. And if that should come forward in the future months or so as a problem, well, so be it. We'll deal with it then. Right now, it's 7 buildings, structures.
Final.
And I just want to be clear that the municipality's administration are not of the view that keeping of the animals is a permitted use in the R2 zone.
You may hear more about this over the next period of time. I don't know. I don't know how that issue will play out. But the purpose was if you were concerned about the purpose of the buildings or the use of the buildings, we wanted to ensure that you were aware of our view so that when you made your decision, at least you had that piece of information. It's not some indirect way to say, oh, yes, you've got the 7 buildings and you also get the following things with respect to the animals. That was not the intent of the material. And if it came across a bit more aggressive than I intended, that
So I'm in my head here, I'm trying to figure out, wouldn't it have made more, excuse me, wouldn't it have made more sense to deal with the acceptance of the animals and then deal with the structures that are going to be there to shelter the animals?
That's certainly one way it could have been dealt with.
Yeah.
This is not reflected in what's been submitted, but my recollection is this issue came up over the summer. And the applicant was provided with some documentation by a fellow whose name is escaping me at the moment, with respect to seeking the variance. So that's what she proceeded to do, and that was what worked its way up through the system.
Councillor Edgell?
So if I'm reading this right, let's pretend that, like you say, that we gave you a stamp of approval for 7 buildings.
Yes, sir.
The animals technically would be dealt on a totally separate, I'll call it open house hearing. Kind of looking to the planners for guidance on that, if that could.
You mean application?
Correct, a separate application would have to be done for the animals.
So it could also, that's certainly one avenue it could come up. I suppose another one would be some sort of a bylaw violation, right? And have it dealt with on the enforcement side. So I think there's a couple of different ways that could come up in the future, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But this, it became an issue. One of the things you need to do is apply for a variance. A variance was applied for. It got called up for a meeting, and here we are. But I take the point that perhaps there were other ways for it to get dealt with, but that's now.
Yeah, I think it should have been the other way around. The animals should be first, because you're seeing these are animal shelter pen animal, like that's what they're for. It's kind of obvious. And you know, we still don't know if seven's gonna even pass because that's precedent setting. Most people get two. We might have the odd one beside it, like a small one, but there's seven. That's. Well, that's, you're allowed two, that's way over. Way over the amount. Yeah, to me, the animals should have been dealt with first, I believe. You want to take a break?
The one concern that I would have in doing it in this order
Yes, sir.
is, variance gets approved. And then it concerns me when you say, you know, it could be dealt with enforcement or it could be dealt with another way, because the enforcement thing can become a quagmire. And now we're sort of, and please, no pun intended, we're putting the cart before the horse, in my opinion, right? So, my personal suggestion would be, unfortunately, we adjourn this again for two reasons. One, we can confirm the 7 or 9 structures. And two, we can come up with a plan the applicant can come up with a plan for maybe dealing with this in a different order, or come back to us and say, no, I want to deal with it this way.
So I think, from the applicant's perspective, and it's set out in the materials, I hope in a way that was clear, her position is that the animals are permitted, and of course, the RM takes a different position. But in a circumstance where she says, I'm allowed to do this, I don't have to ask for permission to do it, to have these animals, like, I can have a pet dog as long as I, have licensed here, I'm allowed to have these animals, I don't even have to have license. In that particular situation, it's tough to say, oh, even though I don't think I have to, I'm gonna go apply for something and bring that on before you. So I certainly take the point that maybe there's a way that we can deal with these things globally, and I think that would be your collective preference. That's certainly the sense I'm getting, is that we deal with all of these things together. But I'm not off the cuff entirely sure what the best way to do that is. And that's why I mentioned the enforcement piece, because if the applicant says, well, I don't have to apply for anything, like I can do this as of right, well, then the RM is gonna try and say, well, no, you can't. And someone's gonna pay her a visit, and then the quagmire begins. But perhaps there is another way to make that work. Just off the cuff, I'm not 100% sure what that is.
Yeah, I think our friends at Red River Planning may have to guide us through this. Oh, I thought that was your stomach grumbling for a second.
It's one of the goats.
Meatloaf.
I just want to grab my water. Go ahead.
May I go ahead?
Yep.
I think we're overcomplicating this. Really trying to blend these two things together when they're actually two separate issues. One is covered by a bylaw, which calls for so many buildings, and we've talked to that extensively. And the other is the usage. A very particular usage, but usage nonetheless. It's two different things. And if we approve, if these 7 structures get approved, hopefully with a little rearranging, that's one step. That's only one issue. Doesn't deal with the other issue at all. What they're used for is beside the point. So if we keep that simple, we deal with this now, whether we ask for come back with erasing 2 of them and whatever the details are. And if the use is with the presence of animals comes up at a later point, it could be violating another bylaw. If it's violating another bylaw, then we will deal with it that way. The owner will have to comply with the bylaw either as written or through a variance order again. Yeah, it's a bit of a quagmire, but that's the process. And maybe they won't come back. Maybe there won't be a violation.
Councillor Redsko?
Two questions.
Yes, sir.
So hypothetically, okay, if we approve 7, even though there's 9 on the picture, the applicant would then decide those 2 are gonna be removed. Okay, that's simple. My other one was, how long has the applicant had the horses?
Not sure if that's in here.
We're not gonna.
I knew that piece of information, when I was here last time. But I've, been focused on a piece of property with trees in St. Norbert for the past month, so some of these details have slipped my mind, just let me check the brief.
Good luck on that one, by the way.
You're in St. Norbert, stay away.
I believe the owner has occupied the site for 16 years. I think I remember reading.
It's for between 15 and 20.
17 years, I think.
17.
I'm just checking the letter that was submitted by the applicant and her husband. Yeah, it doesn't say, so unfortunately, that particular piece of information I don't have.
Yeah, like buildings.
Either of you had something to add? No? Councillor.
I have a question.
Councillor Lawson.
Oh. The question for Redwood planning. I did notice, I think there's a street of homes beside here somewhere on the first picture. What happens if they, I know it's 45 acres, but down the road, let's say it got subdivided. And this ends up with only a couple acres at the front. So when that subdivision comes in, that's when you would tell them to take these buildings down?
That could be one option.
Because they wouldn't be able to have them.
Application, you'd be creating a new property or new titles and then the bylaws and the apply at that time. So depending on the arrangement of the land, it might be variances again for the number of buildings or variances for setbacks to new property lines, what have you. So that's pretty common. See subdivisions in rural areas, especially with farm lots. You can say that's the same address. Subdivide on.
But we've had them that river, and then we say, well, yeah, with that building and that's all gonna go, and then we'll just subdivide the rest of them. Because it's gonna be way smaller.
Or you've also seen it where you then have an accessory building on a piece of property without a primary, so now you need a variance for having an accessory without a primary. So that there's probably a different scenarios that could come up that could be hard for.
Okay,
But I wait till that time if never happens.
okay.
Any more questions?
No.
Oh, what are we going to do going forward from here?
Well, I think we,
We have to be clear where we're going forward from here.
right, but if we're done with the applicant, we move to our discussions, all right? So we close the hearing and then,
Mr. Chairman, just a quick second, I don't want you to close the hearing for the applicant.
Yes.
I think you suggested phoning.
Yes, and thank you for that. I was waiting for you to finish before I was gonna interrupt you.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. I get interrupted all the time. I don't take it personally.
You could just simply take like a 5
Yeah,
minute recess, something
Yeah,
like
if
that.
I could just call her quickly, because if she says to me, look, no, I wanna ask for the 9, so be it, but if she's content to have you make a decision on the 7, then at least, if we end up following at least get this piece over with now, then we get this piece over with.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna take 5-2.
Right, thank you. Great, Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to contact the applicant. I had a chance to speak with her briefly. I explained to her sort of the discussion that's been had, some of the concerns that have been raised. And what her preference for this evening is to move ahead with your consideration of the request for 7. If it turns out that's granted and she needs to remove, consolidate, whatever the case may be to come into compliance, that's certainly what she's prepared to do. And I also explained to her that there may be some additional discussions, perhaps with some of the staff here and I, with respect to what, if anything, can be done with respect to the animals outside of the enforcement sort of quagmire that we had discussed. So I think that's about as helpful as I can be tonight. Unless you have any additional questions for me.
I have one. So forgive me, not a lawyer. You use the term as of right.
Yes.
What I'm not sure I know exactly what that means.
So I think the position with respect to the animals is that she has a right to have them on her property because there's nothing in the zoning bylaw that prohibits it. Staff fundamentally disagree with that position, but the applicant's position is she has, like, as of right, she can have those animals on her property because there's no regulatory prohibition against that. And again, staff disagrees with that, but that's certainly her position. So if the matter does come back in front of council in some way, shape, or form, I suspect that the 2 perspectives you will hear is the one from the applicant, which is you guys haven't regulated this issue, I can have those animals there. Maybe you should regulate, maybe you shouldn't, but you haven't, so I can. Staff's position will be, well, of course we've regulated it, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that, she's not allowed to have those animals. And if that issue comes back before you, then perhaps you're adjudicating that in some way, shape.
Councillor Duval?
So in other words, the number of buildings aside, her position is that she has the right to have animals right now.
Yes, sir.
And always have had the right and into the future.
Yes.
So I guess that even makes it more clear in a sense that the 2 issues are separate. The number of buildings doesn't matter. And the animals, in the application we have in front of us, animals aren't even mentioned. It's simply buildings, number of buildings and the structures and so on. So whatever this decision is here in this council, if we approve 7 or 9 or, well, that won't happen, but whatever decision comes up with, the matter of animals presence is irrelevant to this application.
And as I said, because I knew it might be an issue, given how the issue of the variance came up, I wanted to ensure that council had that information in the applicant's position, just in case you disagreed with your position and thought that they were intertwined in some way.
Can you assure us that your client understands that any decision we make on these buildings here has no way implying that we approve animals present on the land? That has yet to be determined another time.
As I frequently tell people when I'm asked questions like this, I give all of my clients full, frank, and occasionally loud legal advice. The applicant is aware that these 2 issues are distinct, and that tonight is how many buildings are you allowed on the property? The issue with respect to animals, if it will be adjudicated, it will be adjudicated on another day or perhaps another evening and potentially in a different. She is aware of it.
And she's likely aware, I know you can't speak for her, she's not here, but she's likely aware that our administration believes that we do have bylaws concerning controlling animals.
I can assure you that she is aware.
And she can also be aware that we will likely pursue that.
I think you can take or awareness of that from my presence.
I'm not prejudging the whole situation here. I'm just saying there's a question of animals and we will deal with that later if they continue to be present.
Yep, no, she understands that staff have a very different perspective on this issue and that there may be further proceedings. She is definitely aware.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a question,
Mike?
oh, sir. I have a question for the planner. So again, hypothetically, if we passed these buildings, 7 buildings, or 6 with conditions. And one of the conditions would be that the animals would have to be dealt with at a public hearing at another application. Could that part of the decision?
It sounds to me like everyone's quite aware that you're dealing with the number of buildings only.
Okay.
And that the topic of animals is not part of this.
Okay.
I'm not sure it makes sense to have a condition that's not related directly to what's being applied for here.
Okay.
Including
Okay.
Yeah, no, sorry, I took a quick look at the section of the Planning Act that allows you to impose conditions. You want to impose a condition, say plant some trees, things like that, that's certainly within your power. But I'm not entirely sure, regardless of how practical it is, that would fall within the act.
Let's deal with the buildings. So I guess I could ask our planning there, so in it states, would that be a conditional use they have to apply for animals? Or is it just not allowed in that property size?
That's something they can discuss with the RPD.
Okay. Would you know what that would be for animals in that R2? Would that be a conditional use?
Well, I guess, once again, I'm here to comment on the topic at hand,
Okay,
right? I'm not as familiar, I think, with some of you here at the bylaw enforcement notices or whatever's going on. I don't know exactly what we're talking about in terms of animals. So, okay, if I see paddocks, I'm guessing horse too. That's my guess.
Yeah, I'm guessing that. And we do have horses in, like right on Pritchard, but I guess that's a commercial zone, so that makes it different.
I guess the closest I can say is in your zoning bylaw, you have some land use categories that are just like equestrian stables or something like that,
Yes.
or equestrian operation. I think that's a conditional use. Depending on
Yeah.
what zone it's in. There's a farm conditional use, which could be, I believe, anything from growing crops to having pigs or chickens for.
Goats. Okay,
I don't know exactly what's going on.
okay. But we're dealing
So, but.
tonight only.
You're only dealing, I think all parties have certificate clear, but only dealing with buildings, and if anyone's confused, I think this is on YouTube. Have a look at YouTube after, so.
Okay. All right,
Anybody else?
oh, we're good.
Right, thank you all for having me out on 2 separate occasions. I usually don't get invited back, so thank you.
To close the public hearing.
Are we prepared to close the public hearing? Oh, was there anyone online? No, because you gave me the sheet, but I want to make sure.
Someone raised it.
There's
Nothing on the sheet.
nobody. Mr. Toyne's the only one signed on. So. Are we prepared?
Yep.
We resolve that council close the public hearing of council for variation order 97, 2024, 2272 Wenzel Street.
Call for the question.
No.
Oh,
Oh, second.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mover. Councillor Retzko, seconder. Councillor Duval, call for the question.
Nope. Discussion.
Oh, yeah. Don't let the new guy do this.
It's the new.
Don't let the new guy do this. All right, discussion.
if we were going for the buildings, I would just do the 6 large ones. There's a couple, like a 7x5 shed. That's sitting out in the middle of nowhere,
Going into our.
the 2 front sheds.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, is this just
And,
close the hearing?
Yeah, this is just.
Hearing.
discussion. Yeah, and now we're doing discussion.
No, we need, I was right.
Oh,
To close the hearing, all in
and then.
and to close the
public hearing. See, not the new guy, it's ours.
Call for the question. All in favor?
Okay. Now it's
Closed.
okay, no, resolution. If we're, no,
The resolution.
okay. Really getting this thing, this is a confusing one.
12200, located at 2272 Wenzel Street, has made application for variation order 97/2024 to increase the maximum number of accessory structures on the subject property from 2 to 7. Therefore, be it resolved that variation order 2024 be approved with the following conditions. This variance is limited to what has been presented in this application. Any further changes, replacement, or addition require a new variance approval. Applicant owner obtains all required permits from the Red River Planning District and the municipality if required. And approval of this application for the structures only and does not include the use of structures. Any uses occurring on the property that deviate from the permitted uses will require a conditional use application with approval at a public hearing by council.
Get a mover. Counselor Retzko, second. Counselor Postumus. Discussion.
Just for the record, I'd like to see this diagram here adjusted to show 7 buildings instead of the parent 9. As a condition. Can we add that as a condition, Madam CAO?
I will defer that to. To respond to that request.
So just so I'm clear, you wanted to add a condition that the building location certificate be changed? This drawing?
Yes. Because that's not what we're approving.
No.
It's in the package, and we don't want to approve this application, and meanwhile, that drawing is in the package. Contradicting what we intention to include.
So I would say putting a condition in to change this drawing not be above board, because it's a building location certificate that's drawn by the Manitoba Land Surveyor. And under their own act, they have to draw everything that's accurate on the property. So they're not going to give us a new building location certificate omitting buildings from there. What you have noted is that this is for an approval for 7 buildings, not 9. So if council approves that, then I would say it's inherently implied that 2 of these are not in conformance. It'd be up to the applicant to choose which 2 are to be removed.
Okay, so as written, the resolution would supersede whatever you see on that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I leave it up to the applicant to which.
Counselor Retzko.
Based on the buildings, I see no reason to go against this. There's 45 acres. 2,800 square feet of buildings that they're looking for. We allow 2,400, so it's 400 over. We have done that before. And if this property was subdivided, it would be filled. Or you have to come into compliance based on how it was subdivided, so I see no reason to, vote against this.
Which one of these was first?
Okay, I'll go. I still have, so they dealt with taking 2 away. We're dealing with 7. To me, that number is still, we never had 7, like you're allowed 2. You're almost 3 times the amount. I know some are big. You got like, even the 12 by 14 in the metal shed there. You know, I would be fine with 5. I think these, the 7x5 shed up in the middle of nowhere and the 8x5, I don't, and they all. I don't even, if they, you know, if they could just use the 5 big ones, to me would be, I know they're gonna take out this. I guess it's not supposed to be on there, the 6x5 shed and then animal shelter. They have a shelter on one end and a shelter in the other in the paddock, so they're gonna take the small one out. But there's this 5x7 sitting out in the middle of nowhere. And then secondly, as our CEO is saying, permits, do these have to be all looked at if they had permits, or do they have to be checked, or are they just grandfathered the way they are?
Part of the resolution.
Asking.
Yeah, so that's part of the resolution is.
Believe that was-
Permits have to be taken out.
Charles,
I believe that was in the resolution.
Okay. And that's just to be safe, like if people are in or whatever, they got proper buildings. Okay, Brian.
Councilor Duval.
Yeah, further to Councilor Horatio, yes, it is 47 acres, I believe, 42, 47. It's rural Route 2, RR2. What is the lot width minimum for an RR2 lot? You know it offhand?
Maker,
150?
I think it's one, yeah, something like that. Let me just double check.
In 93.
150.
150 feet. This lot is 400 feet. It is huge, okay? Everything is set way back. And I can speak from experience, I travel that route very often between here and Transcona and back, and you don't notice anything when you're driving by there. Now, the closest people to it are the new residents on Prince Cove to the north. Have we received any comments from them, any applications or any letters of objection to this?
There was just one that was in your package that didn't indicate where the gentleman lived.
Yeah, and we didn't get his last name either. We got his first name and an initial, and I looked through our voting records, and he does not live on Prince Cove. Unless he just bought since the last election, that's when we had our latest information. So if he happens to have been just moved on to Prince Cove in the last year or so, and now he's objecting to something that's been there for 16, 18 years or whatever it is, a little bit of a problem with that. Considering again, it's a long distance away. Those lots in Prince Cove are very deep because they're 2-acre lots. So again, I've been by there many times and I don't notice any buildings. I don't notice any animals. Well, you shouldn't even say that because it's not part of the discussion anymore. So I'm in favor of this application.
Done. Anybody else?
Oh, you.
I think the process driven guy in me isn't too thrilled about approving shelters for animals that haven't been approved yet. So maybe I am.
they were here before.
So I do struggle a little bit with the
Me too.
timing of this for the sequence. I'm not fully versed in this as of right, that Mr. Toyne pointed out. So I have some reservations about approving this thing as is based on that. So I'm making up my mind as I'm nodding my head here, so. I think I'm opposed to it as it is, but I guess I would still push to have an adjournment and see if that would be my preference, to adjourn this and move to trying to solve all of this either in a sequence or all together, and then come back here and feel much better about it. That would be my preference for this. I've heard from a couple of counselors already, and I'm not sure what your position exactly was.
My position would be the same as you. I think it should be all dealt with. I know we're only dealing with the buildings on the property, but I'd sooner, to me, the process should, like, you're approving buildings for animals, like it's paddock. It makes sense to have it all dealt with.
And I know it's, sorry, I'm just gonna comment quickly first, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, cool. So,
And I realize it's just dragging it out a little bit more, but I mean, these buildings are in place. I mean, we know that they have to be looked at and inspected, some of the ones that actually should have had permits before they went up. So I don't think it's a real negative effect on anything in terms of, you know, I don't want to use the word operation. It's not a business, but, or at least I don't think it's a business. And to me, to get all the ducks in a row, it would make more sense to me to just adjourn and try and figure all this stuff out as one package, or two packages, but separate, with the animals coming first. Councillor Duval.
just to correct Councillor Postumus, we are not approving buildings for animals. We're not. However, on that point, if you look at the drawing, there's only 2 buildings on there that are used for shelters for animals.
Dr. Postumus.
Well, and also if we did adjourn and came back, it would, the two buildings that they didn't include, asking for 7, which put it to 9, it would be, you know, taken off. It wouldn't be on. I would like to see a drawing which is 7. And those other ones would be deleted.
Or the applicant can amend it and ask for the
I
9.
can ask for amendment and say, yeah.
So we had an impasse here.
Think about it. Sometimes councils drag things on and have people keep coming back. When, like, to me, this is kind of pretty simple. We're dealing with buildings, 45 acres, 7 buildings, 400 square feet over what we allow. Relevant to how many buildings? We allow 2,400, this is 2,800. You can't see it from the road. We're dealing with buildings, period. So, no brainer.
And I know we're having discussion, so how do you put in, like, on this drawing has 9.
Yeah.
How do we state which 2 are gone if we approve 7?
I believe Mr. Twain told us that the 2 previously that would be removed. Now, animal shelter in the paddock on the very left. And then there was the other one, I think the vinyl shed. So that would bring it down to 7.
I think it's the wood shed.
Irrelevant.
Well,
We would be approving 7 and the applicant would.
Councillor Postumus.
so is that written in the approval? Like we could approve 7 and they just don't take the other 2 down.
No,
Like
the
how,
resolution says that they have to come to compliance.
Yeah, they have to come into compliance.
is that
I
something?
can't remember the exact wording because it was long, but.
Please, sure.
It says, be it resolved that variation order 97, 2024 be approved with the following conditions. This variance is limited to what has been presented in this application. Any further changes, replacement, or additions would require a new variance approval. Applicant will retain required permits from RPD and And approval of this application is for the structures only. It does not include the use of the structures. Any uses occurring on the property that deviate from the permitted uses will require a conditional use application with approval at a public hearing by council
And did it state 7 in there?
as proposed.
As proposed, so the proposal 7, so then they decide which 7, is that how that works then?
We don't want to be deciding for them that.
And you, and
That wouldn't go well.
yeah, and they, yeah, and added in there is that buildings only. Anything else has to come back as a conditional use, so that's in there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm fine then.
Anybody else? Call for the question? I am calling for the question. Call for the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Carried. Okay, we'll take a 2-minute recess here just so that Mayor Devlin can get set back up again.
Back, and I will have the resolution to open 6.2 variation order 92.
Resolved that council open the public hearing of council for variation order 92, 2024 for 3133 Wenzel Road.
Have a mover, please. Counselor Duval, second by Counselor Imhoff. Call for the question, all those in favor? That's carried. The public hearing is now open, and I'll pass the floor off to Mr. Planner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is variance 92 of 2024, and it's for property at 31 Hill Road, and specifically deals with some parking lot regulations. Specifically to reduce the permitted parking space length from 18 feet to 13 feet and change. Reduce the aisle length from almost 23 feet down to 15 feet and change. And to allow for 6 parking spaces to be within the front yard instead of not requiring or not allowing any within the front yard. Here is the subject property. I'm sure we're all well familiar with it. On the existing commercial building with parking lot. And these variances are really just to bring the existing non-conforming parking lot into so that our office is able to issue most certainly occupancy permits and those sorts of things. Every time somebody comes in with a new business, we have to do a recalculation of the parking lots that spaces that are required and everything that's required of it. So I think you've seen this kind of scenario in some other commercial properties where we've brought things forward and said, why don't you just have a look at this, just allow for this. Here's a bit of a drawing that shows you the variances that we're talking about. So in terms of the parking with depth and the drive aisle width, what we're talking about is the stuff off the lane to the rear of the building or to the, sorry, this drawing is not oriented with north to the top, but it would be to the east of the building. Close to the, adjacent to the residential area. As well as that sort of pinkish hued area. That's the area that we're talking about. That's the front setback where you're not supposed to have any parking spaces. But I think as we've all seen, there's been a number of parking spaces already there for years and years. Sorry. That's all I have. There's 2 conditions that are recommended, which are pretty standard that the variance is limited to what's being proposed. Anything different that comes forward has to come back to council, as well as they obtain all required permits or approvals from our office and from the municipality. I should also note this was circulated to the RM administration, and there were no concerns. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have any questions, Mr. Planner? Okay, I have a question. The rear parking stalls at the back. Is there a back lane allowance, or is it just to the property line is the property and they've created stalls back there?
There is, it's all their own property. There's not an actual, I'll say, back lane right of way. It's just all their.
Okay,
You can see from the air photo here, you can see the property goes around that.
okay, and so then the approach off of Burton, is that legal?
Couldn't tell you.
In a commercial zone, you're allowed two approaches.
As.
Yeah, how many though?
Technically, they would have, I guess, three.
Three.
And is that legal?
Well, I'd have to look back to see if they ever obtained a variance for the third approach.
Okay, and then if we go back to that map again. Okay. And. So it says here, street parking here. I assume there was a variance in the past for those stalls? Or is it that they've just created street parking there? Because street parking should be only on the opposite side of the road.
I think this is their illustration. I think you just illustrating that.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you. Okay, is the applicant in the audience? No? Okay. Is anybody here to speak for the applicant this evening? Nope. Okay, so we don't have anybody signed in support. We have individuals signed in opposition. We'll start with Dave Storochuk. Would you like to come up? No, it's gonna be green. Yeah. Is it dead maybe? Here.
Okay. Evening, thank you, everybody. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak, of the group. As most of you know, my name is Dave Storochuk, and I live at 2027 Burton Avenue. I, along with other residents of East St. Paul, do support the businesses that operate out of the 3133 Birds Hill Road. Although I do support businesses, I do not support Green Valley's variance application. The site that Green Valley owns continues to expand its capacity without any consideration for the parking and the impact that it has on the residents in the area. The site has never been intended for this use. I'm not really too sure what triggered this variance request, but I seem to recall a variance request a few years back to increase the capacity or space. I don't quite remember. Presently, the majority of the business parking is either along Birds Hill Road, as you can see outlined in red, and along Burton Avenue, and across the street, the Sobeys parking lot.
To change the slide,
Sure.
that's
Take it.
just the microphone.
Oh,
Yes, you leave the microphone on.
so that, okay. That changed the slide. Yeah, so we change the slide. Okay, this is the parking along the north side of Burton Avenue. Talked about. That. You can move to the next slide. Vehicles are parked on the south side of Burton Avenue. Next slide is in the Burton parking on the south side of the boulevard. Here's just another picture of parking extending 3/4 away down the block on Burton Avenue. And here's just an example of some of the Burton Avenue parking that continues to carry on. This is a common occurrence of the parking that goes on in that street. Next slide. Here's some vehicular traffic from 3133 Birds Hill Road on the boulevard. During the construction along Burton Avenue, customers were continually blocking off driveways, preventing access to properties. I was in contact with the RM and they were able to supply temporary barricades that have helped the situation at the present time. Just last week, I received a complaint from the RM indicating to avoid blocking the sidewalks on Burton Avenue to park on the street. However, as you can see from the pictures that I demonstrated earlier, there is no room to park on the street because all the commercial parking is parked on the street. So as much as contractors try to comply, there is no else for them to park. So. Move on to the next one. As it is now, the following bylaws are not being adhered to. With the present parking situation, allowing the variance will further condone and accept the parking situation of 3133 Wenzel Road. So parking on the sidewalks or boulevards, parking in front of driveways, within 3 meters of the hydrant, they're within 9 meters of the stop sign, and they're on the south side of the residential street, which the bylaw states that they have to be, they don't allow parking on the south side of the street. So what they're requesting is 13.17 feet. The required amount is 18.04. So I just put up some measurements of lengths of cars, right? So there's a smart car there of 8.8 feet. Fiat of 11.6. Mini Cooper is 12.7. You know, so larger SUVs are 18.8 feet. So based on what they're requesting, there really is no place for them to park. So those vehicles will be required to, again, park off the property and park on the residential street. So in here, there was 15.28. The required 12.297. The 15.28 may work for an angled parking or in a one-way traffic situation. I think what they're proposing here, like two-way traffic, generally requires 20 to 24 feet for maneuverability. So if they're pulling that parking that they designated in that drawing is 90 degrees. So just having that shortened width, it's really not practical. You can ask for whatever you want, but it's not really feasible. Next slide. If mayor and council are considering approving the variance application, need to also consider the following. That will be compatible with the general rules of the area, will not be detrimental to the health and general welfare of people living in the surrounding area, or negatively affect other properties. The safety of traffic entering onto Birds Hill Road from Burton Avenue, and safety of the pedestrians walking in the congested areas that I kind of demonstrated earlier in some of the pictures. There's a note from Manitoba Transportation indicating they have no concerns. However, I would question if they're aware of the unsafe traffic situation that presently exists with congestion at this intersection and inadequate commercial parking at this location. It is very difficult and unsafe entering this intersection in just a matter of time before there's a serious accident at this location. Approving the variance will continue to condone the unsafe situation that occurs at the intersection of Burton Avenue and Birds Hill Road. This is just looking towards Winnipeg. So I don't know if you've ever driven there or tried to get onto that Birds Hill Road. It's near impossible unless you stick your nose right into the intersection, right? So you know, just having those cars parked is causing some issues. Something the RM could also look at is designated parking on the street to residential zone parking. What this does is designate a certain on-street automobile parking for exclusive use of nearby residents. So exclusive to just the residents on there, because the way it is right now, the residents aren't able to park in the site, because it's people from Winnipeg and from other areas that are patrons to the restaurant that are using this parking space. This does not absolve the mayor and council from the safety concerns for pedestrians and vehicles at the Birds Hill and Burton Avenue intersection, but it does help to alleviate and not be detrimental and affect the residents in the area. The last thing, I strongly disagree with this statement and feel based on the discussions with the residents in the area that they feel the same. They have indicated they have continued to voice their concerns over the years, however, no action in their opinion ever occurs. Must also add that I did not receive any notification for this variance application, nor did other people living within the 100 meters as required. There is also no signs in the property boundary notifying the public of variance application. I happened to notice a placard notice on a couple days ago. At the RBC 18. There needs to be alternative site parking options looked at. This may mean purchasing more property in close proximity, not making additional capital investments by Green Valley is at the cost of local residents and taxpayers at East St. Paul. Green Valley could make alternative arrangements, direct their patrons accordingly. Press control and then link and then point. It may or may not work. Someone sent me. This demonstrates some of the things that go on there. That's just someone pulling versus driveway. And people are well aware of that green garbage can. And then backing up. There's young families that are moving into that area. And this vehicle is backing up down the street. So, so these are concerns, right? Obviously, it's the area is residential. It's always been residential, right? Now there is homes there, and there's going to be more young children there. So I think as mayor and council, we have to be cognizant of the fact that business continues to operate, but it is at the cost of. And that's it.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Storage? Can you tell me when the video was taken?
It looks like 2022, I think. I just
Okay.
got it.
Okay,
Someone sent it to me.
thank you.
You may or may not have seen that video.
No, I just wanted to know because I just noticed something on the video that,
2022.
thank you. Okay, next we have Verinder Brard.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Wenzel. I didn't live on Burton, but I own that property on the Burton. The house is building right next to Mr. Dave. And I see the concerns for the park on the streets all the time on the Burton. We face lots of time. I visit here. Sometimes I have to park way back to come over there, and then same thing, like the cars are parked, you can't even go through when the opposite side traffic is coming. Same for the exiting. There are lots of problems for the park. And I agree with Mr. Dave, whatever he said. That's all pretty much I can say. I'm pretty shy guy, like it's first time. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? No, okay, thank you very much. Next is David, and I don't know what your last name is. Schultz. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, my name is David Schultz. I'm the owner from 2000 Burton. We're also building the on the next 3 properties. We will be building homes too, 2008. No, sorry, 2012, we're building one currently. Going to the sites and coming from the sites, what I noticed just before we did this meeting, I was on site there. By coming back onto the main drag there, by trying to get on there, like this, all the cars parked, and you have to go basically oncoming lane to get even to the intersection. There's no chance to see if there's an oncoming vehicle. While I was coming to that intersection, trying to pull over as close as possible to stop, there was a vehicle coming against me, like trying to enter on their lane. And they had almost to stop in the intersection to let me pull over as much as possible so they could pass. And for me, that's a big concern, especially if there will be more young families living, hopefully in the future. Like 2012, they will be in possession soon, 2000 hopefully so too. And for me, that's a concern. As a business owner, I appreciate any business and I support businesses. And I also have been supporting the restaurant in the area there. And I have nothing against them, but like, to me, it doesn't make sense just to reduce the parking lot, the size. You can't even park a proper vehicle on this site anymore, on the parking spots, just to comply with the zoning. And in a different area, like I'm trying to build a 15-plex, and I have to have way bigger parking stalls, way bigger aisles. I have to have for 15-plex, just for one way in, one way out. This is a commercial place, but it doesn't make any sense.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? Thank you very much. Okay, that's everybody signed in opposition. I have no one for information. Is there anybody online? No, okay. Okay, I have a question for the planner. While the public hearing is still open. Do we know how many businesses operate in that building currently?
Off the top.
There are 2 main ones. Pizza and Jones Restaurant. And I think that's. Oh, I think there's a physiotherapist. And then the Royal Bank has a bank machine kiosk. That's for that.
Okay, so our report was based on size of the parking lot. How are they for numbers of stalls per unit or for the operations that are happening within the building right now?
I think they're okay with that. In 2018, there was a, sorry,
I got a variance.
2018, they got a variance for parking stalls. For additional businesses.
Okay, and that variance allowed them to have less stalls for the number of businesses. Okay.
Some people park at Sobeys as well. They're allowed that.
Okay. Do you know if they have an agreement with Sobeys? Have they indicated that they have an agreement to park anywhere else in the municipality? Okay. Okay, and then for our staff, the parking on the south side, which is paved. They've paved the boulevard. Did we allow that to happen?
I don't know about the paving, but I'd have to look into the parking bylaw because I know there is restrictions in there of where you can and can't park. Look at, I could go back to my office and look that up, or can you pull it up?
Because the boulevard wouldn't be their property.
There is something in the parking traffic bylaw. Are you able to pull that up? So I know it does it.
Sometimes there's
about
staff
not where
that
you
park
can't
there
park.
too, like.
Some staff park in the back.
Yeah, that too. This is all gravel parking in the staff park. This all parking, so that the fees are.
Mhm. Oh, for sure, we have to do that.
say something.
Oh, sorry, Brian. I thought you were trying to talk to me. Yes, go ahead.
Just to confirm, Mr. Planner, this variation is to legally allow what's been going on there for, well, since more than 35 years, because we moved into Birds Hill 35 years ago. And the arrangement there was a restaurant there at the time. And that arrangement we see today was there longer than 35 years. So this variation is just to sort of legalize what's been going on for all that time.
It's fair to say.
And just like the drawing shows, not that one, but the diagram with that pink bar, that one, that pink bar is actually RM property, correct?
No,
Inside
the
the fence.
area is the front setback, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, the front setback, okay.
So the. Below the big bar, I was gonna say south, that's not actually south,
So
that's where below that big bar.
that is,
This is where it's the sidewalk, that's the RM property.
Right, okay, so that is the side yard requirement. And it's been used for parking for, say, 40 years. And the 6 lots in question are those 6 shown there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 there, and then there's the other 2 just across the other side of that entrance. That has been used for parking for 40 years. And generally, and the points taken, points very well taken from the residents speaking about the complexity of the traffic and moving around that area of parking. You know, yes, there should be something done about it. We should try and do something. There's been, it's been come up before, just as mentioned here, when every time there's a variance, something has come up. But this application simply deals with that. It's just to sort of bless something that's been going on for 40 years. And trying to go back and figure out why this was allowed to happen in the first place is kind of a pointless exercise. It's been grandfathered in, you know, that sort of, you know, situation.
Councilor Duval, I take offense to that. I'm asking questions because I have to make a decision tonight. And the decision is based on history and what currently is happening there. And just because it happened 40 years ago, doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean that it's right today. It doesn't mean that we don't have to address it. So I will ask questions based on history and how this all came about, because I wasn't part of those decisions in the past. So I'd like to know those decisions today.
Well, I don't think you were part of the decisions 40 years ago.
No one would be.
Yeah,
On
that's
this
right.
table, so that's why we're asking questions, but history is within our files, so we should know the history.
Well, I challenge you to find the history and why that happened 40 years ago. I'm sure.
Well, I can tell you that that was not paved 40 years ago. It was not my question as to if that was paved by the grant of council, the boulevard was not done 40 years ago.
Boulevard isn't part of this application.
Well, it kind of, I understand that, but you have to consider that they're parking along there. So we have to consider the whole site in our decision tonight.
No, we have to consider the whole site, yes, but not in the decision of this application. All this is a.
It's not a decision of the pad. I'm asking the question because it actually provides them more parking, but it also hinders the street.
It doesn't
That's a
provide them
question.
more parking than they've been used to for 40 years plus. That's always been exactly like you see it on that line.
Okay, I don't think we're gonna agree on that one. Just let it go. Kara, do you have an answer yet for us?
218.
I'm not convinced it's the right answer yet, so we're still.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Horechko?
So based on the residents, you know, there's some things that we can help to alleviate this. You know, kind of thing as far as the traffic. The traffic on Birds Hill Road is way worse than it was 40 years ago. Coming in, they're going to St. Clements. I mean, it's a highway. And you know, maybe we can make some no parking in that first area on Birds Hill Road and take away that boulevard parking, which has nothing to do with this application. And maybe patrol that area with our CSOs and, you know, that kind of stuff, parking closer to a fire hydrant there.
But, you know, and what Councilor DeVal is saying, I mean, we're kind of dealing with this, with just a piece of this parking lot. We're not dealing with the whole parking lot. You know, right? So,
Okay, so we'll go to discussion. Right now it's question period, but if we grant the variance, then the owner of the property doesn't have to make things better. So, but we'll go to discussion after we close the public hearing. I'm just waiting for some questions, some answers from staff. Unless somebody else has a question.
I have,
Councillor Imhoff.
So if we, for Mr. Planner, if we decide to not support this variance, what happens?
From what I understand, this was triggered by an occupancy permit, so the applicant, I believe, probably for the first time in our office, received information on the actual dimensions of these lanes and spots. So that's why this variance is being talked about. If council does not approve this, then we cannot approve an occupancy permit for business that's that wants to go in here. And then it'd be incumbent on the applicant to, I guess, make it right. Make the parking spaces and widths into conformance, however that might be. That will probably trigger, I'm guessing, variance to come forward to council, might be for the number of spaces or arrangement of spaces. I'm not sure if they get this.
In all likelihood, it will reduce the number of spaces available in there. Is that?
That would be my guess,
who's one?
without taking a deep dive into looking at the geometry of this area. I guess it's for the applicant to figure out, but that would be my guess.
So we have this application in front of us, and then we have a separate but very important problem on Burton that we need to try and help solve, is what I'm getting from this. So if we don't support this application and force them to go back to fewer stalls, that creates more cars possibly fighting for spots on Burton. I think part of what we have to do as our administration is we need to come up with a parking strategy that protects the residents on Burton. And I don't know that changing what's in this particular parking lot will do that, but we definitely have to put some effort into it now that we've seen Mr. Storchek's presentation. Like, that's an issue.
I'll go to you in a second, Charles. I just want to touch on that question. So now that I know that this is based on an occupancy permit for a new business, what is the new business and how many stalls do they require?
So the number of stalls are not the subject here. That has variance.
I understand that, but to understand that they're adding another business to an already congested parking lot. So it does, if the business is, let's say a golf simulator. We're gonna have, 40 cars there at night for guys playing golf. That it does kind of matter.
I saw that. Actually, information, just give me.
So Madam Mayor, while we wait for him to look, do you want the answer?
Sure.
So in the bylaws, section 18A, it indicates that on residential streets, you can't park on the south side. So it's north side only.
Thank you. And Madam CAO, have we been having calls? Have we been ticketing? No.
We'll have to.
I personally have not logged in with regard to that, but I have sent a note to our safety officers to just pay attention to that area on the south side.
Okay.
Just one more note, you had mentioned you received a complaint regarding the construction vehicles on the sidewalk. We did receive an email earlier today from the complainant saying that matter has been solved.
Still in public hearing, are we not?
The public hearing is still open. I haven't closed it to where we would go to discussion. Right now, we're just in question period.
So this is for a chiropractor's office.
Oh. It's
been there for 3 years.
In
or 4.
terms of spaces that are required here, just looking at some of the correspondence between some of our zoning officers and the applicant. So it looks like 8 spaces were required for the chiropractor's office, 8 required for Little Pizza Place. 4 spaces required for, sorry. No, sorry, just read that. But anyways, it is for a chiropractor's office.
Okay, but we don't know how many stalls are required for each business.
Oh, here it is. There's 1 for that ATM, 3 spaces for the Jones's restaurant. That was approved through the 2018 variance. Yeah, 8 spaces for the pizza place, 8 spaces for the chiropractor's office, 4 spaces for the residential suites.
Sorry, there's residential suites there?
Yeah, second floor. On the second floor.
Oh, that's a different building.
No, it's upstairs.
Jonesy's is not 2 floors.
No,
Is it 2 floors and there's
There's
residential?
people living
suites?
upstairs. Just picture the other part of the mall, not,
Oh, it's
above
2-story right here?
yeah,
Oh, in the back.
Yeah.
Okay,
they come in from the back.
okay. And so they have access from the back.
Yeah, park at the back.
Yeah, they park it.
So does the residential portion have a legal approach back there?
Well, on a residential lot, you're allowed 1, and then on the commercial, you're allowed 3. So technically it's zone commercial, so it would be 2. So that's where I'm gonna look into the 3rd or the commercial lot, even though they have residential on there.
Okay, so we'll move to close the public hearing. But I think we need to table this because I think there's, I just don't think it's as cut and dry as everyone's trying to say that it is. I just don't believe that. I think if we're going to approve this tonight, we're granting this bit of a mess to continue on for the next 20 years, so. Councillor Posthumous, I forgot to go back to you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was asking where the residents park, but I see they're the back, but as earlier mentioned, is that in compliance going on to Burton driveway there? If it's not, how do we pass parking? I remember the previous variance was, so in the previous variance I guess it was 218. Do they not have the size of the stalls in it? Because so these are existing stalls and now they're coming back saying, oh, by the way, they're undersized. Okay. Yeah, because I've seen it where they're almost bumper to bumper because a truck is 18 feet. And it tries to slide in this small stall at the front.
Imagine that information wasn't provided or the information was provided with the assumption by the applicant that. So
Instead of 18 feet, they want to do 15.
we only go by on person they went.
Okay, so that part I got now, and I'm still concerned with this other entrance on the back, if it's not a legal entrance.
Well, that's where the delivery trucks deliver the bread and.
But don't the people park there that live upstairs, like there's.
Well, there's only one suite.
There's only one suite, okay. But there is stalls in the back where the workers can.
You can see that car there and then one.
Yeah, I
next
see
to it.
2 cars.
And that's kind of where the suite is. The only reason I know that is from my day job.
Okay.
That's where you bring
That's where
everything.
you do deliveries.
Yeah, that's all the deliveries come in because you can always come in the back door.
But we don't know if that's a real entrance.
Well, it's an approach. It's always been there.
It's always been there.
Yeah. Driveway.
Well,
That's a driveway.
This
Gravel.
has a long file, so I'll look through all the old approvals and see.
And lastly, I'm gathering the chiropractors during the day and that's others. Because
so.
8 stalls get used up by night for the restaurant.
Restaurant is open during the day as well.
That's true.
Okay, parking lot's not that busy during the day. In the evening it is,
Okay, is there any more questions for staff or the planner before we close the public hearing?
Yeah, I missed this.
Counselor Duval?
Are you saying, Mr. Planner, that this came about because of a chiropractor setting up a business in this location?
Occupancy, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't say that on the package, that's just sort of. Thank you.
Okay, I will have the resolution to close the public hearing.
You resolve that council propose the public hearing council for variation order number 2/2020.
I have a mover, please. Counselor Imhoff, seconded by Sir Federico. All for the question, all those in favor? That's carried. The public hearing is now closed and I'll have the resolution read.
Whereas the applicant, owner of tax roll number 84650, located at 3133 Wenzel Road, has made an application for variation of 92/2024 to reduce the required length of parking spaces, the width of aisles, and to permit parking within the required front yard of an existing commercial establishment on the property as follows. Length from 18.04 feet to 13.17 feet. Aisle width from 22.97 feet to 15.28 feet. And front yard from no parking located within a required front yard to 6 spaces to be located within a required front yard. Therefore, be it resolved that variation order 92/2024 be approved, subject to the following conditions. This variance is limited to what has been presented in this application. Any further changes, replacement, or additions would require a new variance approval. And applicant obtains all required permits from the Red River Planning District and the municipality if required.
I have a mover, please. Federico, seconded by Counselor Imhoff. I'll open the floor up for discussion. Who would like to start? Counselor Federico.
so this is a kind of a tricky one because if we turn down the variance, we're just dealing with the parking lot. Okay, we're gonna make this, eliminate more spots and they're gonna park on the street.
We're not eliminating spots.
Well, we're gonna make them smaller.
We're not making them smaller. They're asking for them to be smaller.
But if we don't approve it,
That another business doesn't go in and cause more traffic.
well, that business has been there, I think, for 3 years.
I don't know that.
The chiropractor office, yeah, it's not new. There's no new business. But it wasn't legitimate, I guess, like legal. Okay.
What triggered the?
Bigger issue
occupancy if
here.
It's not new.
Did they renovate?
What triggered them to come forward for an occupancy permit if they've been there for 3 years? A complaint? I don't understand.
Renovation?
Doesn't know. Okay.
It wasn't in compliance before.
Parking lot?
Yeah.
No, that's my experience.
So the parking lot wasn't in compliance.
Right, but so my question to yours is, if the business has been there for 3 years.
Yeah.
Operating without an occupancy permit, what triggered the occupancy permit?
No idea.
So are we confident that it's been there for 3 years?
I'm 99% sure it has. In a while. Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
So, the bigger problem is the parking on Burt. And parking on Birds Hill Road, but. So we need to eliminate some of that, turn that into no parking. And maybe if those businesses talk nice to Sobeys, they'll give them a few more stalls, because I know Jonesy's has X amount of stalls across the street at Sobeys. Because unfortunately that restaurant creates a lot of business there and it takes a lot of the parking and creates the problems for the people on Burton. CSO could help us in the sense of, they would have to ticket ticket there for a long time for those residents that are parking there. You know, there were also East St. Paul residents that are going to Jonesy's. And, you know, parking too close to the hydrant, all that kind of stuff. If they get ticketed, maybe we can smarten them up and maybe they can park across the street at Sobeys. This is kind of a two-folded crazy.
Anybody else? Counselor Duval?
Yes, Counselor Horeshko, I agree with. And also Counselor Imhoff. Whether we say yes or no to this reduces the parking and makes all the other congestion worse. Okay. So again, it's internal to that parking lot. He's trying to make it right or wrong. If you call it a wrong 40 years ago, he's trying to right or wrong now by being in compliance through the variance order process. And if this gets turned down, what is he going to think? If I was in his shoes, I would think this: why did I bother going to the council? If I had just kept my mouth shut, nothing would have happened. So you're better off to just keep quiet. And if he had kept quiet, nothing would have come to this council.
So once again, we don't know what triggered the occupancy permit.
No, we don't.
By law,
Well, I don't.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's irrelevant to say if he kept quiet, it triggered an occupancy permit, which brought it forward to us. And so my rebuttal to you is that if you continue, it's not, I think that everybody has to stop thinking about potentially the businesses in there right now. They have to think about the landlord who owns the property, who has been able to lease and occupy this space with not being in compliance. So if you push back on a landlord, they're forced to find a way to maybe potentially come into compliance. I don't know. I'm just saying that if you continually approve a wrong, it's just gonna get worse and worse over the years. So how do you force somebody to be better? Well, you say no once in a while, and then they have to find a solution. There is no sign on their parking lot that says or directs traffic or businesses to go to Sobeys that I've ever seen, unless I just haven't seen it. And I haven't seen on Sobeys parking lot that says that there's stalls for Jonesy's. So I don't know that that's happening, Norris.
yeah, well, I do.
If it was happening, it'd be great if they could direct it to across the street and have signs, because then it allows those stalls on Sobeys parking lot to be open, maybe take some congestion off the street. But the landlord has to find solutions too, and he can't just come for variances and say that, you know, this is just gonna make it better. It just doesn't make it better. If I look at the parking along the backside, to me, that's just for staff, deliveries. If I was a patron, I would not want to park back there. I would think it'd be unsafe for me to be back there with deliveries and everything else that's going on, and then, you know, walking around. So those parking stalls back there, I don't think they get used by people that are going to the restaurant. I think they really get used by staff. So we're really focused on the street and the side and whatnot. So
Who uses them? I have no clue.
exactly, but I'm saying I personally would never think that I could park back there. The signage around that building is not good. So, you know, we're not, I think sometimes you have to make a business uncomfortable to actually find some great solutions instead of just granting them, you know, another wrong. Counselor Duval?
No, parking around the back is not used by patrons to the businesses and restaurants. It's too awkward to get in and out of. It is used, as I understand, by the residents who live in the suite upstairs, and it's used by the employees. Of course, there's access for the employees through the back door of the facility, but there's also an outside stairwell for access to the second floor. It's outside, so I'm sure the resident uses that parking stuff. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying. Counselor Postumus?
Yeah, if you sled down Further in it, it does show the back parking and it says 4 are residential. And 6 are for commercial businesses to park. So there's none on the back for
So are you
Patriots.
referencing, you're referencing the map that was for,
The backside.
as,
I think he's
could
referencing.
we have that brought up then?
Yeah.
Eric?
There it is. Applicant site plan.
So 4 of those stalls are for the residents that live up above, and then the others are for commercial, but the commercial, essentially what Councilor Duval is saying is they're used for the staff.
Yes, that's what I was saying.
Okay.
And then I'm guessing to finish, oh, sorry, my understanding is since 218 or before, since this was done, they've been operating with these stalls the way they are. Some reason the fellow was in 3 years, maybe bylaw came, whatever, or he's renovated and he needs to get an occupancy permit. That triggered the measurements coming in and stating they're all undersized. And they're not adding anymore, they're just. Is that correct? They're not adding any more stalls, they're just. Getting a variance for the stalls they have.
They're trying to make them smaller so they have more stalls.
No,
Typically when a business,
no, these are the existing stalls that were there since 218, and that's the size they were.
so just to note on the process, when someone improves a suite or unit within a commercial building. They'll get a permit, they can get occupancy to start running their business. If they want full occupancy, so the permit's all completely closed and finalized. That only doesn't have to adhere to the code improvements. It has to adhere to the zoning. So inside the building itself. So
Yeah,
that's
they're not adding-
parking terms.
So I'm correct, they're not adding any stalls, they're just trying to bring. The stalls they have. Compliant by asking for variation.
Yeah, so the stalls are existing.
Yeah.
The stalls that are existing don't
Exactly.
meet requirement.
Don't meet with.
So they're asking for those to be accepted as the requirement.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Anyone else would like to add? Councillor Imhoff?
Well, we still have questions now about the access points here too, right? Like whether it's 2 or 3 or what's. Me, this looks like we should gather some more information on this, I think, first. The other thing, I think we have to commit to trying to improve the situation for residents on Burton. No matter how this shakes out, it's a problem and it needs to get dealt with.
I agree.
And part of that solution has to come from the landowner there.
Right, so we shouldn't, as a council, be finding solutions for a landowner. We should be dealing with what we're dealing with, but, and I'd like to know if he has those committed stalls by Jonesy's and why there's, if Jonesy's has those stalls, if there is agreements and signage and everything else. Regardless, I think that we should table the decision tonight. If council wants to proceed with the decision, I'll call for the question.
I just want, when I misspoke saying find the solution, we need to be part of the solution by actually enforcing the parking bylaw in that area, right? And I mean, it may not be popular, but those residents deserve to be able to, be on their street without having to dodge vehicles and worry about, that kind of congestion and everything else.
Sure, and that's why I'm, tonight I would not support the variance order, because I think the landlord has to have a reason to want to make his site better. And it's not gonna happen if we keep granting him the ability to continue. I mean, Mr. Storchuk is right. A 1/2 ton is like 19 feet long, so it can't fit in this parking lot, right? And so you have to consider that as well. So does council want to table for more information, or do we, I can't go back to you, I'm sorry. Does council want to table or proceed?
I'd support tabling it to get more information to make sure we have the whole picture.
Okay, Counselor Duval,
No, I believe we should deal with the application as it's written right in front of us.
thank you. Counselor Horachko,
I agree with Councilor Deval.
Counselor Posthumus. Tough seat.
Hot seat. I think we should table it and get more information. And,
Okay.
and to find out, like, if they have the stalls on the other side, we'll get signage. Oh, if they have stalls addressed on the other side, if they can get signage. And, as Councilor Imhoff said, also right away look into staff, like the no parking on the south side, maybe we need more signs. Maybe there's only one and people don't see it, or like, because I know they fill up both sides quite often.
Right, so we won't be able to add those things to the variance.
No, I'm saying not to the variance. Our staff look into that right away.
Sure. Okay, so do we need a resolution to table or can we,
Can,
oh, Derek? Mr. Planner?
Say promotion or.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just a point of process. Close the hearing.
Oh,
And is there a motion on the floor, a first and a seconder to,
There is.
so how do we stop that?
Oh,
That
okay.
way,
oops.
We've done that in the past.
be sure.
Sure,
So
okay,
in terms of bringing this back to council, because you've closed the hearing, I think we need to re-advertise it. For whenever you want it to bring us back, because it's not closed. That's okay, it's not a big deal. Just send out notice.
that's how we've done it before, too, no?
Maybe we tabled it before.
Are we not just, sorry, are we not just reserving our decision?
Yes,
You want more information. So usually when we want more information, you leave it open so you can obtain more information.
okay, so then can I just
But we close.
move it to the next meeting just to consider my decision? Can we do that? And so then how do I close it?
The resolution on the floor as it stands would stand. We would just table.
The decision.
Yeah.
We'll table the decision.
oh, we're doing that.
Yeah, that's how I thought.
Can I
Council-
ask-
Understanding that the applicant will come forward with additional.
Right.
Staff.
Council can do their own research or whatever they want to do to make a decision before the next meeting, but it allows us some time to consider the decision.
Perfect, just want to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, for sure, I got it, yeah.
Just a straightforward question, we're tabling to get more information. What information are we looking for?
So for myself, I'm tabling it to not make a decision tonight. If I make a decision tonight, I'm not supporting the application. If I come back at the next meeting, I don't know where my decision will lay. I do think that there's some considerations. There's a lot to consider, and I would like to do a little bit of my own homework, I guess you could say.
Councillor Posthumus, you mentioned that you'd like to table it for further information. What information would you be looking for?
Well,
Well, one is the additional parking, if he has the agreement with Sobeys. Apparently, that's one thing.
There is no agreement with Sobeys.
yeah, so we wouldn't, so what the planner has indicated is if we are deferring our decision, it is not for more information from the applicant to
Okay.
deferring the decision. If council wants to proceed with the providing an answer to the variance order tonight, we can do that. Councillor Imhoff?
I'm under the impression that there's a question whether or not that back thing is even legal, like the access. So, and if it's not, then this variance application is predicated on those 12 spots back there.
Yeah, because they're,
Well, it's part of the overall.
Right.
Then the building itself doesn't come into compliance, right?
Perhaps it doesn't, who knows, but it's not part of this application. I mean, we can veer off on all kinds of tangents like we've been doing here, where the parking on that few couple of cars on the boulevard, the traffic, the parking in front of driveways up and down Burton and all these other they're very real issues, and yes, they need to be addressed, but they don't have anything to do with this application.
Counselor Posthumous.
Well, that's my other point, and I did stress the back parking. It does say commercial parking. These would count into the count of how many stalls they have to have for this building, would they not? Mr. Planner? Like the back stalls for commercial would be part of the total count for the building for it to be in compliance.
So when we look at the zoning bylaw for the number of parking spots that are required, we're just counting the number of parking spots. How they want to manage their own parking, whether they put reserve for this or that, that's their own management plan. That's not predicated on the zoning.
Right, so Counselor Posthumous. If those stalls are not. If there isn't an approach and that isn't allowed to be there, then I would think that if someone came forward for an occupancy permit, there wouldn't be enough stalls. And then there'd be a different ask.
And that's what I'm trying to get, then say we pass the front and then we find out, okay, well, now he's gonna come back to get an approach. Or a change in the variance,
And that all,
So-
yeah, you
and
can-
then they're paying more money, so to me. To get it all straight and done right the first time makes sense.
well, we would still have to make a decision on the variance that's before us.
Correct.
Does council need 5 minutes to consider?
If you want. we can talk.
Okay, we'll take 5 minutes. Okay, council's back from their 5-minute recess. Council, did you go around and ask if we're ready to render a decision, or if you want to continue to table the decision for another meeting? So Counselor Posthumous, I'll start with you because last time I ended with you.
I think I'm ready to make the decision tonight.
You, Counselor Hirschfeld,
Same thing today.
Counselor Duval?
Yeah.
Counselor Impop?
Sure.
Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, moving on to the next one.
We take a 2-minute break and
Sorry? Oh, you can call him. What did I do with my sheet? Did I take it over there, Suzanne, when I came with you? Oh, underneath this. Okay, 6.3 variation order 104 for resolution to open public hearing.
Be resolved that council open the public hearing of council for variation order 104/2024 for 161 Eagle Creek Drive.
Have a mover, please. Councilor Hirschfeld, second by Councilor Posthumous. Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. The public hearing is now open. And we'll pass the floor off to Mr. Planner.
Thank you, Mayor. As I noted, this is variance 104/2024. That's 161. And the purpose is to reduce the building separation from an accessory from 10 feet down to 25 or 1.2. Here's the subject property. You can see the house and the existing pool, and here is the site plan of the applications to do. I just noticed an error in the report. So let me explain here. There's a house, there's a pool, those are existing. There's a separation distance of 10 feet that has to be between the house and any accessory building. They wanted to add a new deck onto the house. Once you add the new deck, your bylaw says anything attached to the house is the house. You've got to adhere to the house rules. So that's what we're varying, the deck to the pool.
Okay.
That's the issue there. The deck is open, hot tub there, stairs, you can see up front of the site plan. So that's the essence of this application. Should council wish to approve this, there's just two standard requirements or conditions. One, the variance is limited to what's approved here. If you come back with something different, or let's say if you close the entire deck in December, let's get it back to council. And two, that the obtain more requirements. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Colano?
Nope.
No. Okay, thank you. I don't believe anybody's in the audience as the applicant this evening. We don't have anybody signed in for support. We don't have anybody signed in opposition. No one for information. Is anybody online? No. Okay, if we don't have any questions and no one's here to speak, we'll close the public hearing.
Carried.
Resolved that council close the public hearing of council for variation order 104/2024.
Have a mover, please. Counselor Posthumous, seconded by, Counselor Imhoff. Sorry, I forgot this was your word. Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? Public hearing is now closed, and for resolution.
Whereas the applicant owner of tax roll number 103514 located at 161 Eagle Creek Drive has made application for variation order 104/2024 to reduce the separation distance between accessory structure and principal building to allow for an attached deck to be constructed close to the pool on the subject property from 10 feet to 4.92 feet. Therefore, be it resolved that variation order 104/2024 be approved, subject to the following conditions. This variance is limited to what has been presented in this application. Any further changes, replacement, or additions would require a new variance approval. Applicant owner obtains all required permits from the Redwood Planning District and.
Can I have a mover, please? Counselor Imhoff, seconded by Counselor Duval. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, under bylaws, we have 7.1 for resolution for second reading.
Resolved that bylaw number 2025-10 being a bylaw of the precinct to provide for firefighting, fire prevention, rescue services, the related regulation of fire and other hazards, the adoption of the Fire Prevention and Emergency Response Act, and for establishing, continuing, and operating an emergency service for the municipality to be known as the Fire Prevention and Emergency Response Bylaw, given second reading.
I have a mover, please. Counselor Posthumous, seconded by Counselor Duval. Okay, we'll open the floor up for questions or comments. Good, thank you, Mr. Planner. We'll see you next year.
Thank you, Council.
Have a good evening. Okay, so there's not much change here. It all pertains to fireworks. And probably a good idea. So I guess I'll call for the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. And then for third reading.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2025-01 being a bylaw of the RMW St. Paul to provide for firefighting, fire prevention, rescue services, the related regulation of fire and other hazards, adoption of the Fire Prevention and Emergency Response Act, and for establishing, continuing, and operating an emergency service for the municipality to be known as the Fire Prevention and Emergency Response Bylaw, be given third reading. And be it further resolved that the mayor and CEO be authorized to sign the bylaw on behalf of the municipality.
I have a mover, please. Counselor Orechko, seconded by Counselor Imhoff. So just for those in the audience tonight, so that you know, we're just changing the permit. It's for fireworks, where it's for the community at large as part of special events, opposed to having every resident in the community setting off fireworks. So now it's going to be based on community events. Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. And then the resolution will have variation or 7.2, another bylaw.
Resolved that bylaw number 2025-02, being a bylaw of the Isle of East St. Paul to regulate noise nuisances be given second reading.
Can I have a mover, please? Counselor Horechko, second by Counselor Imhoff. Any questions or comments? There's a few edits in the noise. Any questions? Okay, so we're just confirming hours of operation for activities and no person shall carry out, cause to be carried out or allow the following activities outdoors within 150 meters of a dwelling. So we're just protecting the residents from noise issues in the future.
Mechanical tools, equipment.
Right, yeah, and there's hours of operation attached to that.
Nothing really changed pertaining to that. If there had been a typo in the bylaw,
Okay.
with regard to the hours, so we were just correcting the hours. We had the weekdays and weekends.
Okay.
In fact, so the hours from Monday to Friday are anytime before 7 AM and after 9 PM. And on the weekends and stat holidays before 9 AM and after 11 PM. Then we also removed anything related to dogs barking because that falls under our dog bylaw. So it's just some housekeeping.
Have a mover, please. I have a mover. Did I have a mover and a seconder?
Yeah.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried.
Awesome.
Okay, under policies,
We have third reading.
oh, third reading. I'm getting ahead of everybody.
Resolved that bylaw number 2025-02, being a bylaw of the Isle of East St. Paul to regulate noise nuisances be given third reading. Be it further resolved that the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign the bylaw on behalf of the municipality.
Can I have a mover, please? Counselor Horechko, seconded by Counselor Postumus. Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried.
Christmas light.
Now, under policies, we have 8.1 Christmas light policy. for
Okay.
discussion.
Be resolved that policy PUB 122, operating dates for Christmas lighting be approved as amended.
I have a mover, please. Counselor Imhoff, second by Counselor Duval. Any comments or questions on the policy, Counselor Postumus?
I'm guessing we would approve which one we're gonna approve, A or B, so A.
What's that?
We have to make it, I believe we have to make a choice. It says A or B. And A is
Yeah, so
recommended, A is staff, so I'm fine with that.
so A is the changes, B is not approving the amendments.
Oh, I thought,
There's no
oh, I,
decisions there.
sorry, I read it earlier. I thought we had to, it said A, council could approve and B, council may choose not to approve.
Right, the amended,
Amended.
yeah, the amended,
Okay, so we don't have to make that decision, we just pass it.
right, and so, Madam CAO, can you just speak to the amendments, because we have individuals in the audience that don't know potentially what we're seeing.
It's a blizzard and they couldn't. Yeah.
I'll let the CAO provide.
So the amendments are being brought forward because this year we encountered a delay for the removal of the lights because of inclement weather. So our policy does not provide for any deviation from the policy. So now we've included a clause that should the weather or equipment failure, what have you, cause us to delay the removal, that we now have that authority under this policy.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Under general business, 9.1 planning, we have 9.1.1. Subdivision. For resolution.
Be resolved that council adopt the development agreement for subdivision S 23-2992 for 2461 McGregor Farm Road between Dietrich and Helen Rethel and the Island Municipality. Be it further resolved that the mayor and city will be authorized to sign the agreement on behalf of the municipality.
I have a mover, please. Counselor Costumis, seconded by Counselor Horechko. Any comments or questions? Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Your administration, we have 9.2.1. This was deferred from January 14th. And Counselor Duval, you had requested that be deferred. Are you satisfied with the audited financial statements?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Okay, so I guess I just call for the question. We have a mover and a seconder, or do we defer before? Okay, so have a mover, please.
I'll read the resolution.
Oh, sorry.
Resolved that the 2023 draft audited financial statements tabled from the January 14th approved as presented.
And I have a mover, please. Counselor Imhoff, second by Counselor Duval. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, so we don't have any business arising from delegations. There's correspondence in our agenda. Any comments from correspondence? For EMO emergency measures, our plan was,
Blessed.
yes.
It was blessed.
It was blessed. So that's good. And then we received funding in the amount of $48,816 for Dutch elm disease management. And then we had the 2024-2025 highway capital infrastructure plan provided to us. And so that is with the CAO. You can check it out like a library book, or you can read it online.
Say it's online.
So it was provided to, I just left it with the CAO if anybody would like to take it out. I know Councillor Duval likes paper, so maybe he wants to.
Good, I'll have,
Because 40 years ago, he liked to use paper. Just making a joke about your 40-year-old.
I want a copy. I'll print.
Sometimes I have to poke. It's what the chair should do.
500.
Do we have anything in camera tonight? No. No. And we don't have council reports that we have to hand in for the agenda to next meeting. So I know you guys are all sad, but I'm gonna adjourn the meeting now.
Resolved that the meeting be adjourned at the time being 8:07 PM.
I have a mover, please.
I'm gonna vote against this.
Councilor Horechko, seconded by Councilor Imhoff. Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried.